Well, here it is, the finals of the North American Championship for the Star Wars X-Wing game. I am Zach.
And I'm Steven, and we are here watching Jacob on the left playing James on the right. We've seen both these guys come through the top four. If you've missed those videos, be sure to check them out because there's some great prologues to this game in those matches. And we got a TIE Swarm on the left facing a high defense X-Wing list on the right from James. Could there be a more thematic end to the North American Championship than 3 X-Wings against 7 TIE Fighters?
As a huge fan of the game and as a huge fan of this universe, no.
The answer, my friends, is no.
Now, this is exactly what you want to see if you're a player. TIE Swarm versus 3 X-Wings. Really, it's quite awesome. Quite the spectacle to see. And I want to note here, all of these pilot cards are from the core set.
Whoa.
Just putting it on the table. There are some upgrade cards from Wave 2.
I was about to say the shield upgrades look pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, there are only 2 waves, so there is that. But all Wave 1 pilots.
All Wave 1 pilots. We've got them marked with the numbers. Black is going to be Jacob there, so as you might expect, the Imperials black numbered and the Rebels over there red numbered.
More obvious when there's not 2 TIE Swarms.
Yeah, help keep track of things. And as we've seen from this list, we got 4 Academy pilots on Jacob's end of the spectrum. We also have Dark Curse, Backstabber, and Howlrunner. So we got the 3 name ties. As you said, Zach, nothing not out of the core set here. This is straight up core set list.
Absolutely. Yep, that is straight up.
So pretty impressive, pretty cool that after all of these new things, these new waves, things have more or less stayed the same for the TIE Swarm, at least this version of it. We've seen other versions that do include some of the new tools, and perhaps better against certain matchups, worse against other matchups, and a lot of times in those situations, it just depends on what you see throughout the day. But, man, Jacob getting here and meeting James with, like you said, all named pilots from the core set. But, man, those shield upgrades really are what take this list from an X-Wing list to an X-Wing list. A lot of thought here. Just the combination of abilities and pilots is just beautiful. And, I mean, look, you can't deny the fact that there's Wedge, Luke, and Biggs flying against 7 TIE Fighters. And we're going to see who comes out ahead. I mean, this may as well be a scene directly from New Hope. It's beautiful. It's fantastic. Can't say enough.
The only thing that could make this more thematic is if there was a Darth Vader in the mix.
I would like to see a Darth Vader over there in an advanced. You'd have to lose about 12 TIE Fighters to get the points for one, but I think it might be.
It is 2.5. It's like 2 1/3 is Darth Vader, no pilot upgrades, so.
Obviously, I guess not worth it for Jacob.
Yep, absolutely.
So didn't consider the theme of the final match in his ultimate list choice, which is kind of a mistake, I think. So Jacob, maybe next time.
You really got to consider what's going to be on the table in the final match of the game.
Yes, please.
Yeah, this is. Look at that formation, by the way.
Yes.
TIE Fighters, that is. That's a tight formation.
I mean, it's the approach, and I think both guys have the approach down. I'm going to essentially just move my guys forward in formation. You want to set them up in a way that you can break formation and adapt whenever it comes to that. Usually turn 2 or 3. For these guys, it's going to be turn 3. But there's obviously a reason, right, that Luke is in the back here. There's obviously a reason that Backstabber and Howlrunner are in their respective positions. This list is set up, both of these are set up to adapt and kind of strike out once that initial conflict is started. So it's really something to pay attention to. It's like in any miniatures game. I remember when we were playing any number of miniatures games, War Machine to now Infinity, the way that you start the game out, where you put your guys, is the kind of thing that you really don't focus on early. You're playing the game, you're like, well, it doesn't matter too much, and then you start to realize later down the road where those initial placements are is a critical factor of your success in a high level match. So I think it's worth noting as an X-Wing player, which surprisingly we are.
Indeed, and if you're watching, you probably are as well.
Yeah, probably are. Worth noting, why are these ships in the positions they're in? And for instance, why is Wedge on the outside of that formation rather than the inside? Those kinds of decisions that are being made are really important to hang on to and to check out.
Now, that's a really big move because by barrel rolling with that first tie, I assume that means this whole formation is going to be moving forward and barrel rolling, or at least a large portion of it.
I think that's fair to say. And I think we're going to really force the conflict here on turn 3. And these barrel rolls are really getting you there so that there's no... I think ultimately Jacob is going to want to close into this thing as quickly as possible and start to really put the heat on. He's got the numbers. He's got the dice. He wants to get in there and go. If you just stay on the outskirts and take shots from these X-Wings as you're approaching, then it's not going to be as good for you. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him tightly curve into this thing on turn 3 and try to get all up in the face of James, especially when you've got to consider 3 actions to manage versus 7 actions. And if you can really just make it where those X-Wings are always running into your TIE fighters, they're not going to get any actions. You can really just spread them around almost like an asteroid field. And that your TIE fighters that do get actions are going to have a significant advantage in that exchange.
Yeah, I almost wonder, with this many more ships than your opponent, I mean, you're over twice as many ships, how tightly knit the entire squad's going to be. Because I feel like there's something to be said of splitting it up so you can basically guarantee a couple of your ships get behind the opponent's ships and stay there. No matter how you move, you can just always shoot everywhere and shoot everything.
Yeah, and just cover. It's really about area control. It's about board control here. Area denial, really, if you want to go that far. Like I said, 3 X-Wings can only shoot so many places and can only be in so many places without running into other things. And so also worth noting, I think in all of these matches we've seen a propensity to really gather in these areas where there aren't asteroids and really make the conflict about the open field. We saw that in pretty much all the top 4 games. We're seeing it now. It seems like both of them are beelining for this massive corner of no obstacles. And I've got to wonder if one side or the other would have gained an advantage by staying. If those X-Wings had moved, for instance, onto the side closest to us, the bottom side of the screen, what if the X-Wings were placed there? How would that change things? You have 7 TIEs all having to maneuver around an asteroid field. I think that might be something worth doing, but James has decided to go for the open ground as well, and probably doesn't want to deal with those asteroids either. So maybe this is kind of a shucking off of the asteroid belt. And this is a moment in the game that's kind of important, interesting. This is where essentially the rule is kind of clarified. You know how whenever you have, let's say you have a ship that runs to the back of your other ships, so they're both there touching, right? Then let's say both of them do like a 4 forward. So the question is, if this ship that never overlapped this ship because it stopped short, because it had to, right? It ran into it. If both of them move the exact same distance, do they run into each other again?
They do not.
That's the question. Yeah, the answer is, and both these guys, James and Jacob, I believe, both were saying that earlier in the tournament, other opponents had said, yes, it's still a collision. They still lose their action. But being clarified here that they do not lose their action. Those ships are not colliding on the second movement.
Absolutely.
And so that's good to know.
This is a really interesting maneuver. We saw it in the last game where he sends 6 ships kind of together, and then he sends Backstabber all off by himself.
Yeah, look at him maneuvering the asteroids here.
Yeah, and the interesting thing of that is, you might think, all right, well, you could move in such a way where now you're going for Backstabber first because he's all by himself, get out of the fire and wreck the others. The problem is, with the way he sets it up every time, if you go after Backstabber, then every other ship is behind you.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very good play on Backstabber.
So it's a really cool way of doing it because you still have 6 ships going one direction, and to have one of them go off is the most painstaking
calculation.
Yeah, it's just because you can't really deal with them, and you really just kind of have to go straight into the swarm with a guy at your back as well, and it's just kind of a nice way to always know you have a guy who can really put the hurt on, take some actions, and just backstab you.
Yeah, it's with Backstabber at your back, maybe more importantly, it's like, ugh. And so it's a psychological threat for sure, and one you have to choose whether to react to or not, and that path that's being taken right now is perfectly through that asteroid field. He's going to really be able to go straight in there and not have to worry about anything. For these X-Wings to even try to, bay him at all, they're going to have to take a risk. They're going to have to kind of get into the nitty-gritty of the asteroid belt. They don't want to. And as you said, you get a bunch of easy shots from these TIE fighters if those X-Wings turn, or if even one of them turns to confront Backstabber. And I'm almost certain that these X-Wings are going to stay together. They're built as a squadron. They're built to stay together. Biggs doing work, Luke drawing their fire, Wedge, of course, being Wedge. These are really all meant to really synergize together. So the luxury of going off, sending a ship by yourself is not afforded to James, but I think Jacob taking advantage of it here. And looks like we do actually have maybe an attempt here, and that's going to absolutely be an asteroid hit. That could be a huge fatal move for James there. And as he just said, that may have screwed up the whole game.
Yeah. Just miscalculating, didn't think he'd hit the asteroid, and now he's on the asteroid, can't attack, can't take an action, and is right in the firing range of all those ships.
Yeah, man, if you'll remember James's top 4 game, he just went up and down the board. Maybe not as experienced with these turning maneuvers because he hasn't had to be in the past, you know?
That's funny. I mean, TIE Swarm is just one of those lists that I think for the foreseeable future you just have to practice against and you have to play against, because you will see it at some point in the tournament. There are too many players, and you know how your list reacts to TIE Swarm is a big part of this game. And
yeah, it's
unfortunate.
Man, Biggs is just wide open here. I don't know. We're gonna. If Luke can maybe get up there and do some serious drawing of fire, that's one thing, but Biggs just wide open here, and if we can clear Biggs off the board this turn, it's going to be massively huge.
Massively huge.
Massively huge. There's no adjective that can fully describe how significant it would be to get one of these X-Wings off the board right now.
I've got a feeling we're going to see one of those off, and when you talk about losing 33% of your firing power, Biggs is obviously the early target because he has to be, and you just lose all that on turn 1 before you really get to even do anything. That is rough. We'll see what happens, but I got a feeling it's not going to go well here for James.
And the turning commences. There's huge, man. Look at that curve. So going towards the middle, this position is going to be precarious for James. He's chosen to kind of come through here. Now these TIE fighters, the Academy pods, can have interesting choices to make. They essentially got an asteroid right in front of them. So maybe, I don't know what their next action is going to be, but...
They're going to be 1 turns or 2 turns. They can get out of that pretty easy.
Yeah.
They're really maneuverable.
I wonder what the X-Wings do next. Look at that. And it looks like we're starting with the shots. Wedge on Backstabber. Or checking the ranges, rather. And it looks like Wedge will be a shot through an asteroid as well, if I'm not mistaken there. Wedge taking the measurements. Still such a... I mean, we could lose a tie or 2 here, actually, on this exchange as well.
It'll be important. The dice here are going to be huge. I mean, we're going to have Wedge going first, but, you know, forcing his opponent, because the TIE Fighter has no shields, so forcing your opponent into using that focus could really prevent some damage here, and you're rolling 2 defense dice. Even Biggs, who's going to have to be the target of most of these attacks. 5 combined, well, 6 with the upgrade, shield and hull. It's a decent amount to have to eat through, honestly, when you're rolling some defense dice, so he really needs his defense dice to be hot here.
All right, so we got a target lock coming in on that Academy pilot. And another target lock, Luke onto Backstabber here. Luke onto Backstabber. So let's pick up the dice. Let's see what's going to happen here. Starting with Wedge. Yeah, going on the number 1 Academy pilot.
Looks like range 1. Only going to be rolling 2 defense dice.
Wow.
That's important.
That looks like 3 hits and a crit.
I believe so. He's going to really want 2 evades here.
That's 2 evades. Yeah, an evade to focus. Who's going to have to focus it out?
And the crit still could be a direct hit. So
Taking an attack and taking the crit. And primary weapon is reduced by 1. So a great, actually, defensive shot there.
drops the focus and drops 1 attack die. So that's going to be a pretty much neutralized TIE fighter with 1 attack die.
Yep. And Luke swinging in on the backstabber. Target lock spent. 2 hits on the backstabber.
I'm assuming that's range 1 with those 4 dice.
Yeah.
Wow.
Looks like, yep, 2 evades.
Not good.
That is great for backstabber.
Really there you want to make him use his focus, but nope. It looks like he may have taken a barrel. He didn't even have a focus.
Yeah.
So that was a
he
big
wide
opportunity.
open.
That was a really big opportunity.
And How Runner's coming down. I don't know if he has a shot or not. Looks like we're checking it. We'll be through an asteroid. It's going to be hard for How Runner to get any damage here, but you may as well roll the dice. 2 hits.
It's a good roll.
And 2 evades.
I thought that one of those was a focus. I was nervous.
And it looks like...
I already find myself cheering
Dark
for the
Curse.
rebellion as like an underdog here.
You cheer for the rebellion?
No,
here.
not normally. But, in a sense of the movies where they're the underdogs and you're just kind of cheering for
You hear the
them.
music right now?
Yeah, I feel like this is setting up to be one of those. He's got 1 ship left for like 4 turns, and it's this comeback potential.
All right, Dark Curse coming in here. 2 focus. He's going to switch those to hits. 1 evade, so that's going to be 1 off the shields.
So now he's down to normal shields.
So Biggs down to starting shield.
I mean, he's knocked off 4 points, basically.
Yeah, you can't argue that. All right, so Backstabber getting an additional die because Biggs is not in firing range, not in the firing arc there. So he is officially outside of the firing arc.
Nice.
Or so they're saying.
So it's been agreed upon.
It has been agreed upon. Ooh. No damage. So, wow, Backstabber.
Did not backstab so hard.
Doing some good evading, not so great on the offense there. And now we're going to get down to these Academy pilots.
Range 1 on all these rows. Check the Gimpy one here.
Wow. A lot of attack dice.
And Biggs just having to hug that asteroid.
It's not the worst spot to be.
Not the worst.
It's not great, though.
All right, so starting with the
Looks like the
little
injury.
one at two dice.
Yeah.
And that's going to be a hit.
Yeah, so got rid
No
of one of their
evades there.
shields.
1 down on Biggs.
Gotta be out of 1. So this guy with focus howler.
So
So
2,
1 hit.
and then we're re-rolling How Runner there.
And he's going to focus for 2 hits. That is so mean.
2 hits on Biggs.
Rock also. So you're hitting my corner's on a rock, so. 1.
Looks like
1 evade,
evade.
so another damage to Biggs. His shields are down. As we said, Biggs was going to be vulnerable this turn.
You hope Big survives if you're.
That's
if
what
you're
you want,
James right
yeah.
now.
Now, Biggs is meant to act in this role. He's meant to soak up damage from your important X-Wings.
You just hope it's more than 1 turn.
The problem is the trade-off here has not been worth it. We needed a little more offense, I think, out of the X-Wings. And How Runner, talk about... Man, look at that. Look at that sequence. 2 hits.
So amazing.
And again, just 1 evade.
And we need this.
Actually took 2 there.
Yeah, it looks like you rolled all focus.
Man. And finally, range 1.
3 dice, you can't say.
And we got a How Runner reroll.
Sealed deal.
Boom. 3
Sealed it.
hits.
This is just
No evades.
No crits, you rolled no crits.
absolutely
all hits.
beautiful maneuvering from the TIE player. I mean, this is just the odds when you get a roll dice, re-roll dice, and the focus is just
Wow.
so high.
Wow.
It's a down Biggs. I will note that Luke Skywalker is in beast mode right now with his upgrades, so
What?
it's going to take a while for him to get taken down.
And I was going to say, James, commenting on the fact that no crits were rolled that entire time, which means draw their fire certainly not really coming into play.
Yeah, and
So
you
that
want
was-
it to because you can regenerate those shields with R2.
Absolutely, that was hugely, just huge for Jacob. Like I said, that situation that just happened is about the worst that it could have gone for James, and he's gonna have to pull this thing out so hard to get back in this game with 2 X-wings now, to an undamaged more or less TIE Swarm. One of the Academy pilots hurting him, but I mean, just look at the point differential.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, you already had 7 ships to 3, right? And now you've got 7 to 2.
7-2, and one ship that's knocked out was
Even
worth
if,
2 ties.
Yeah, even when you get rid of that TIE fighter and you make it 6 to 2, you're still triple the number of ships on the board.
And look at what we got going on here. We got some collisions going on just to stay in position here.
Not the worst. Not the
Yeah.
worst spot to be.
Obviously, well planned.
Man, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, and then now the front guys are going to go, and we're going to see where they are. That's a more interesting movement to me. Yeah, look at that. They're getting out of there, avoiding the asteroid completely. And I wonder if the other one's going to do a little crisscross applesauce here. That's an official TIE fighter term, right?
Crisscross
Crisscross
applesauce? Yeah, it's my favorite
I
move.
think Vader said that in the movie at some point.
Crisscross.
Let them have the.
That's pretty
crisscross
fancy there because you
applesauce.
just keep that TIE fighter really kind of in the same spot.
Wow.
And there's not too. I mean, where does the X-wing really go if you maneuver appropriately? It's not that asteroid.
And that's the key to the TIE Swarm list is managing Howlrunner. It's keeping Howlrunner in one range of everything you can possibly keep it in one range of.
Everything you would ever want.
And there's that. Backstabber coming in. Looks like a little bit of a pincer setup. I think all eyes are on Wedge here. Potentially moving into a bad situation.
Even if he just lands on the asteroid, I mean, that's going to be really pretty awful.
It's not the greatest. Makes me wonder what is planned here. And we have another stat going on.
There's not too much you can do.
No.
I mean, like, X-wings can move forward.
Yeah, it's essentially Jacob sacrificing actions to stay in position, keep the pressure on. I think it's probably a wise move. Action's not as important with Howlrunner, but of course, kind of icing on the cake.
Well, and you'd almost expect the ties to turn there. Not to just stay
and
there.
James just said was not expecting that move.
Yeah, so he actually had plenty of room to just be. But, and actually, if he just moved forward really far, would be out of range of a lot of those TIE fighters. But instead, he stays in the same spot and gives him a perfect spot to sit.
And look at this, just turning through. Right through the asteroid, no action, gotta roll the asteroid.
Yeah, and that's going to be a backstabber extravaganza. There goes a shield.
Taking a hit. So Wedge, a shield down.
Wow. What's phenomenal about this is the X-Wings don't have any shots. And this is the kind of situation where now the TIE fighters are behind you.
Yes,
Like-
and it's gonna be hard to get out of that spot.
Yeah.
You're looking at a K turn, yet again, no actions.
Jump to Howell. We'll go after Wedge.
Looks like we got
2. Just
Howlrunner going at Wedge, range 2.
nothing.
No hits.
All right, which one has the damage where he can't fire? His primary weapon's down by 1.
3 is the reduce.
Okay.
Then we'll jump to Backstabber.
All right, backstabber.
4.
Range 1. looks
Range
like,
1,
on
outside the
Wedge.
firing. All right, it's gonna be 4.
Yep. All right.
Yeah. 4v2. And Wedge is someone you definitely want to deal with.
Looks like a
Focus, so he's
2
got 3
hits and a
hits.
crit
Yeah.
using the focus there.
This is horribly. How many hits? 1 evade.
2 hits, 1 crit.
Looks like it 1 evade.
Crit.
So 2 hits, 1 crit versus 1 evade.
Wait a minute.
Yep, so both shields.
Both shields. That's it. Right. Okay.
So they're gonna lose both shields there.
Yeah.
Then
Oh, wait a minute.
Wedge
Luke,
open here.
you rolled a crit, right? Luke's gonna take it.
All right, so Luke is gonna draw their fire there,
so that was like no hit.
leaving 1 shield on Wedge.
She'll do it 2.
Luke loses his shield, but we can assume he might get it back. But you don't have the green maneuver here.
3 throws can't attack.
I mean, you can.
But You don't. you regain a shield to lose 20.
Yeah, that's a rough spot.
He does not have a shot.
You guys agree?
That's close. Just checking that spot on the TIE Fighter number 2 up top.
Yep. Range 2.
And
Looks
Academy TIE ruled to have that shot there.
Yeah, range 2.
Owl.
How runner
Runner.
hits.
Two
2
hits.
hits.
I can't roll a fucking evade.
And no
2
evades.
focus and no evades. That's a big deal.
And the other guy,
Just getting eaten up here.
the one howl, and nothing.
No hits there.
That's it.
All right, so that turn sees a full drop in shields on Wedge and a damage done. And
Wow.
a shield off of Luke.
Wow. And the TIE is completely unscathed here.
1 its damage.
3.
Wow.
You mind if I just put it on a card to make it easier?
That's fine. So we don't lose track of it.
And where does that leave us ultimately? Especially where does it leave James? You think you have to K-turn here, or you can't just take shots in the back the whole game.
Yeah. I mean, you could also
You
just
even
go,
split up.
You could go maybe a 5 forward, or Luke could do a 3 left turn, or a 3 left bank, and split them up. But I mean, Luke is hard to kill.
Yes.
He's going to be very difficult to kill here. So, I talked about it in one of the previous 2 games, where closing in a game when you're way ahead in ships is sometimes way more difficult than you think it is.
Yeah.
Because there's so many spots where they almost always have a shot once
Yes.
you're engaging, whereas sometimes only 2 or 3 of your 7 ships even have a shot. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like 2-on-2, 3-on-2, or whatever. Sort of like a 300 style. Send them through the pass so that the numbers don't really matter as much.
Yeah.
And it's tough to take down to lock down those final ships.
Yeah, and Luke, once he gets on his green maneuver, I think that really opens up Luke to be able to not move much, just take some green maneuvers, recover some shields, and always have a target in front of him. And let's not forget Wedge. Assuming that Wedge survives here, he's still an offensive juggernaut. Can easily take out one of these TIEs by himself, so we'll see if he's capable, if he pays off. Just some solid maneuvering here, really just trying to cover angles, looks like. TIE Fighter 1 and 3 really kind of just rolling past the action here.
6s.
You really just, again, part of being a good closer is covering all your angles, and it's not as much like you don't have to finish it now. Like there is an immediacy. You want to finish it as quickly as possible, but you also want to set yourself up for several turns of lots of shots.
Yeah.
So you don't want to just throw away, board position because you want to get as many shots as possible now in the immediate moment. So you kind of loop around and you just circle and don't give him a spot to go where he's out of your shot.
Yeah, Wedge losing all of his shields, huge deal here. He's very vulnerable. I think clearing Wedge off the board here is going to be a nice play. I'm assuming that's going to happen. That still leaves you with the issue of Luke Skywalker with rechargeable shields, decent offense, very good defense, changing focus to evade as a matter of passive. He is always going to be an issue for this TIE Swarm to kill, even with 2, 3, 4 people firing at him. So I'm truly wondering if this is going to come down to Luke versus a legion of TIE fighters.
And it probably will.
It probably will, yes.
And that's what Luke is hard to track down. He's hard to kill. So
Not the same.
that's what I'm saying. It's not over until it's over.
And we got a bit of a jump there. The 3 and 2 ships did move, and Luke took 2 damage to his shields in this exchange. So we're picking it up about 3 minutes past that jump. And good evades on the TIE fighters there.
Finally, these guys aren't doing anything, so we'll go.
And
Guy,
looks like the final shot here is going to be
range 2, instructed. This guy.
range 2 through an asteroid.
Focus
So likelihood here is very small, but possible. Hitting a crit.
Where are you firing from? That one. And that one has a scrub. How many range?
Two.
And Wedge
One
is
has the crit on it.
give it a shot.
The guy that ran
Fire
away.
control. Okay. So I get 3 dice, correct? Yep.
Let's take a look here. 3 dice on the evade. Big moment here.
2 evade.
Looks like you
2
got 2
evades.
evade.
Guy checking for
Even just 1 evade there would have taken a crit, and that is not what you want. With all your shields down.
definitely range 2.
Looks like a range 2 shot.
Range 2 from number 4 Academy type pilot.
Number 4.
Number 4, the dreaded number 4.
He was very fearsome among
Absolutely.
the ranks.
2 hits.
2 hits, just on fire here.
Burn the focus.
Had to burn his
And
focus.
burning the focus and using Luke's ability.
That's it. So Luke's just down.
I'm sorry, not using Luke's ability.
For me.
That wasn't Luke, it was a Wedge.
Clear.
Which, burning the focus there, not a bad deal. You didn't have anything else to do with it. That was the last shot. And still just a number of TIE fighters here. Positioning huge here.
It's an important
Just
turn.
huge.
Man, it's funny to see. I'm primarily an Imperial player, for those of you that don't know. And when you aren't using Imperial ships, like, they just aren't as maneuverable.
Yes.
I'm used to highly
Yes.
maneuverable ships. And it's like these X-Wings
Those
having
X-Wings have...
to turn around without K-turning is a rough sport.
They have a few places to go. And it never really changes from that.
It's, and it's really a great play on Jacob's part, and not allowing your opponent to be able to K-turn
Yes.
is a big deal, because if he K-turns, he doesn't get the action. If he doesn't get the action, then you're probably going to blow their face in.
Yeah. And, I mean, look, 5 health left. 5 health left on this side of the board. On James' side of the board.
22 for the Imperial player.
22 for the Imperial player. So, a lot to churn through here. I am kind of rooting for the X-Wings at this point, I've got to say. Not for any fault of Jacob's, but just because that's the human condition. You just root for the underdog. That's just
You root
what happens.
for he who struggles.
It feels insurmountable. It feels like a scene from Star Wars.
You got to wonder if he'll trust his feelings.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if nothing else, if you create a game that is meant to simulate those epic moments in the movies, I don't think you could really ask for anything more appropriate than what X-Wing has accomplished, which is readily apparent in this game, specifically. Just, it's just gives you joy. It just makes you smile.
I'm going to comment again here. I am so impressed with Jacob's maneuvering here.
It's magical.
From the start, it was just, when you see that Hellrunner affecting so many ships every turn, I mean, the math there, I'm sure if we just took 5 minutes to do the math, it would just be crazy on how many hits you're going to average.
Yes. I'm wondering, are we going to see a K-turn out of the X-Wings here? It looks like Jacob getting ready for that possibility. Still in position, ready to go. Still having some shots if they do K-turn, but I think it's still a pretty solid option for both Luke and Wedge. You got to start taking some of these TIE fighters off the board. You can't just try to regenerate a shield and call it good.
And 1 or 2 rolls can easily take it. One attack can easily knock down a TIE on a decent roll.
Absolutely, and look at this.
It's actually not bad. There are a lot of ships here that cannot shoot him.
Yeah, that is not bad. So we've got to move here. And what about Wedge? And readjusting.
That's rough.
That is rough.
There's nothing like knocking over your opponent's ship.
Yeah.
1, for touching his belongings, but 2,
Yeah, exactly.
for potentially screwing up the entire game.
But you can't. I mean, it just happens,
Yeah. And I mean, the ships and bases are super light, so it's really easy to knock them over, especially the
Absolutely.
small bases.
And look there.
This isn't the worst.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
Wedge
be
actually
honest.
pretty much out of a few firing arcs that he could easily have found himself in.
He's interestingly out of most firing arcs, and there's an asteroid that He's kind of screening him.
All right, Howrunner coming in here. Wedge starting it off.
Hit, crit.
So 2 hits and a
2
crit.
hits and a crit is exactly
and,
what you needed.
Howrunner's.
2 agility and focus.
Wow.
Unbelievable.
If your name happens to be Jacob, you were a very happy man right now.
Oh my gosh. I thought Howrunner was done there.
That'd be a big play if Howrunner was taken out.
Hal don't have a shot.
Luke on Dark Curse, looks like.
Over here at Luke. Alright. Luke will shoot this one. Will you check the range for me?
Luke is shooting at Academy Pilot numero dos.
Number 2.
This side, I don't want to hit these guys again.
Looks like range 1.
Get it or not?
It's kind of a double-edged sword here. If it's range 1 this way, it's going to be range 1 the other if you don't
Yeah.
kill that ship. Looks like we got an
Look at the
official,
official
ruling coming.
measurement here. Big moment.
It's important.
It's range 2.
Ruling it is range 2, I believe.
Yeah, ruled as range 2.
Luke's line hit right here. So I measured from right here. So range 2.
So he's measuring to where his firing arc actually goes to get to the base. And that connection point is actually range 2.
Yep.
Even though the ships may be closer. And I think the TIE fighter will actually have range 1 going back.
Be 2 on.
Looks like 2 hits on pilot number 2.
Not bad, but 1 shy of really shaking some things up here. There are
Yes.
a lot of TIE fighters without shots, so this is a huge turn. And the X-Wings should be able to fire on TIE fighters next turn. So this game is by no means over.
By no means over, and it's easy to see how quickly it can change here. Really, just a turn of X-Wings getting their full dice on some TIE fighters, and we're gonna see what's happening in return here.
Going at wedge.
And we're rolling some dice at wedge from numero 6. That's the backstabber.
Looks like range 1.
Range 1 through an asteroid, but outside the firing arc. That's going to be some good dice there.
3 hits. Wow.
3 hits in Howrunner.
Oh, man. Only 1 evade.
Yeah, nothing. That's not going to do it.
2 evades would have meant Wedge stays alive there. We're down to Luke, ladies and
We are
gentlemen.
down to Luke against 7 TIE fighters.
If ever there was a comeback, this would be the most awesome.
I've got to admit that we have not seen the end of this. So I'm kind of nervous right now.
I'm telling you, I have had games where you feel like you're on top of the world and you are about to take over the galaxy.
It's just a matter of focus fire at this point. I don't know how you can overcome. At best, you kill a ship a turn, so 7 turns you would have to not do 3 damage to Luke.
Well, 3 damage, but every grim maneuver is going to get him a shield back. He's
And
got
he
his
just
ability.
took another damage.
Yeah, I'm going to stop talking.
We're ready.
I don't know that he took a damage there.
He did. He totally did.
He totally did. Well, I'm telling you, it's if you picture 7 ships and their firing arcs being displayed out on the board, it's pretty tough to nail down exactly where your opponent's going to be and get 7 shots a turn on them.
Sure. There
So,
will not be 7 shots.
If you're doing well, you're going to get 3 or 4 shots. And
Look
if
at
you're
this scene, man.
Yeah.
Just look at it. You can just feel it. You can hear the whizzing. Zoof.
You know in a tournament when you pull ahead, like you've been playing all day and you're in a big game and you just kind of pull ahead?
The biggest game.
Yeah, and like that rush of like calm that suddenly hits and like just like relief,
Yes.
that can destroy you.
Yeah, it can absolutely make you lose every time. I tell you, the number of games I've lost from that feeling right there is enough to make me never feel it again. But Jacob being very precise here, I'm not getting any kind of relaxed or even casual vibe right now. This is down to business. Look at that. Beautiful move, preserving the arc in case we do have Luke moving forward, even to a great distance, is
Like
still
a-
not going to clear out those arcs.
A long distance K turn or something.
Yeah, exactly.
If you look at where the TIE fighters are aimed at this point, it's pretty awesome.
Yeah,
K-turn.
look at this. Look at this. Gonna K-turn in, covering every angle you can imagine here, and setting himself up
For
for
multiple
the
turns,
next
yeah.
turn. Yeah. I think 7 is going to be interesting. I think Howrunner is going to be... I wonder if he's going to K-turn into those Academy pilots and Backstabber. And look at this. K-turn in here.
Man, this is wonderful.
I can see this playing out live in my head.
They just all turn on you, and you just see tons of green streaks
Just green
firing
lasers firing.
on one ship, and Luke becoming one with the Force.
Backstabber's getting right into position up here. Gonna run into his own ship to preserve his arc.
The idea of, creating a collision intentionally is it's a huge part of this game when you have this many ships.
Yeah, a collision in terms of, that's what we call it via mechanics. I would call it in flavor terms maybe drafting or something, like you're posting up behind this ship and letting them kind of help you. I guess you can't draft in space. There's really no resistance,
drafting.
right? Yeah.
So
I
it
don't
looks
know.
like he's
I'm not
taking
a scientist.
A green maneuver to regain that shield. Looks like a one bank.
Yeah, and that's recovering a shield and getting right into the mouth of the Sarlacc pit, as it were. But again, no good places to go.
So it looks like we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ships able to fire on this ship. And Luke, we're going to go at range 1 at probably Howrun, everybody to guess. Not what
It's
you
like
want.
a hit and a crit.
Ouch.
And spin the focus to evade it all. And the numbers game commences. I am uncertain that anything can stand up to this onslaught.
Well, fortunately, Luke's ability is going to give him some extra defense, but
It
we'll
will.
see how long that holds off for him.
Dark Curse. Straight up.
So many dice.
Howrunner.
Dark Curse attacking. Howrunner's going to re-roll. And we've seen that a million times out of Jacob. 2 hits and a miss, re-rolled into a hit.
Luke's ability.
Luke's ability for an additional evade. So that's going to take one of the shields there. Shields are down. 2 hits left on Luke. Yeah, looks like a 2 range shot from an Academy pilot. 2
Two
hits.
hits, man.
Just laying them down.
Looks like you rolled
And
a
Luke's
focus.
ability comes in again, so
But he's
only
still
taking
gonna
1
take a
damage.
1 health left.
One
Can he
health.
close it? We got an asteroid in the way here, I think, so that's going to be good.
I don't know. There's just so many dice coming in.
Focus.
So it looks like the Academy pilot with no actions, just getting 1 hit. Pressure's on here. This is a roll, and easily
Yeah.
gets it.
With the focus.
And then now we have Academy pilot with the focus on Luke, and we're gonna check the range here.
This guy, correct?
Yes.
No.
Gonna check the range. Range 2.
Focus.
Just crit.
And 1 crit. What a way to end it if it is. And
Got
Luke's
it.
ability evades. My goodness.
All the shots.
That's it. Luke makes it out with 1 health, but having done no damage.
This is the kind of situation where, if his opponent was down to 3 or 4 ships, I could really see Luke
You
pulling
can
this
see
off.
it, yeah, possibly maneuvering out of this.
There's just so many dice that have to be rolled before this thing finishes. If Luke were to prevail, mathematically,
I'd throw my hands up, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. He really needed to down those 2 ships he damaged earlier. Even those 2 Academy pilots being gone would increase the odds here a lot.
Yeah, significant. I wonder if James actually played this 3 X-Wing list against a TIE Swarm. I cannot imagine he got through this tournament without taking one down. And I wonder if that critical turn in the beginning was a huge... And you really can't deny it is a lot more dice coming in from Jacob, but there was a lot of hits on those dice.
Yeah, well, I mean,
he was on fire this game.
When you really break down the odds of this game, an attack die has 3 hits and a crit, so it's a 50-50 shot to hit. If you roll 3, you should roll at least 1, but really you average about 1.5. And then if you have Howl Runner there to let you re-roll,
that's pretty good still. And then you have a focus.
You should at least be able to get, and then if you include focus in there, it gets crazy. But to get all focus and all hits is not that
not that low odds.
It should happen most of the time, and that's one of the situations where
it feels like it shouldn't happen as often as it did. But if the numbers do kind of favor it, if nothing else, maybe James. I feel like there are some key evades that when I was watching these earlier, the other top 4 games, you had some big moments of just evade everything, 3 evades, 2 evades, 3 evades. And didn't really evade much this game. Critical evades that were missed here were important.
Yeah, I mean, really, Biggs going down turn 1.
That's huge. I think the turn into the asteroid.
And there was a lot that went wrong
was critical.
There too. Turn the asteroid so you don't get your action. You also don't get to attack, so they don't use their focus on defense. You also didn't see any crits, so Luke couldn't shield any of it and then regenerate the shields.
Yeah, that's big.
That whole first exchange, the first strike, as it were, just did not go well for the Rebels.
It was devastating. And really now we have a tie pile. Anywhere you want to go will stop you. And that's going to make it very predictable where Luke is going to end up at the end of this movement.
Only so many spots he can go.
I could see him getting a sweet K-turn here, though.
He needs green and an action, though. He's got 1 health. If he doesn't have an action or a green maneuver, this is almost impossible.
Well, I would say his chances at
You
this
just got to
point...
take big chances.
I mean, if you K-turn here, you're in what? 2 firing arcs? 3 firing arcs?
Maybe 4.
Maybe
5.
You got to start taking something off the board here. And one of those arcs is that injured weapon from Academy Pilot 1 that's not going to do much. Although this is now looking worse.
You kind of wish there was a get off the board maneuver.
Yeah. Well, I
Don't
mean,
die.
here, look at how good a 1 green forward is here. It actually looks okay.
Yeah, you gain a shield, you wouldn't get to take an action, but you'd be in a solid spot. We'll see what he does.
And it looks like we got a 1. Essentially the same thing, so I think this is a good chance. Good shot. And James, I'll never forget saying earlier, around 11 minutes in, I never turn. And I decided to turn in the finals. And that's the kind of thing that it kind of haunts you. It really does stick with you. But it happens, and that's the name of the game, and you come back next year and you destroy.
Yeah, I mean, it reminds me
and you don't
of,
turn.
There's the double Falcon list does that too, where they just kind of go back and forth, and they don't let bad maneuvering get them. They just won't allow it, and they have 360 firing arcs, so it really can't. And
It's safe.
Yeah, it's a big discussion, and a lot of times against TIE Swarms, you have a lot of firepower, so you can go head on, and you actually have the odds. But it's definitely one way to play the game. Absolutely, it's a viable strategy.
Back there. Okay. Yep.
I wonder. As much as I want to think this is possible, the creative part of me says, yes, maybe. The realist in me says,
It's absolutely possible.
don't tell me the odds.
It's possible, but it's just not likely. Looks like he's going for Howl Runner here.
Going for Howl Runner. That's
Not a bad
nice.
start.
2 hits, not
Looked
going to
like a little
focus
more than
in.
that.
I didn't get the action anyway. 2 evades.
Can't catch a break, man.
I don't think this is...
Well,
We'll see if Jacob can seal it.
cue the Imperial March, my friends.
Luke with a shield and a damage open.
Backstabber.
really makes me feel like Luke is the centerpiece of a force that has a little bit more ships to throw out. Maybe some A-wings or something could be cool. I've done it a little bit of that, but man, this ability, Luke just soaking the fire.
Focus.
He's hard to kill.
Good hit.
And a crit and a hit coming in. This is a big roll here. Looks like we're gonna evade one and take one of the shields.
Well, yep. That'll go.
Takes the
away.
shield. He thought it was the game.
Yeah, had the handshake and then had the shield.
That's it, right?
Oh, looks.
Well, no, I got evade.
No, so you're
Yeah, you
You're
lost
still
your
alive.
shield.
Lost the shield. I got one left.
He's still alive.
Yeah, he's got one
Staying
left.
alive.
take it back.
He takes the handshake back.
That's it, right?
Wow. We're going to another turn here.
Are we going to another?
He just knocked the one shield down that he gained back, so it didn't really do much that turn. Unfortunately, Luke also
That's
didn't do
the
anything.
problem, is that Luke is not providing any offense here. I think losing Wedge just really kind of takes the teeth out of this thing.
Wedge is certainly the teeth.
This guy first, 2 straight.
And we're gonna go going back to the dials here. I think we're just gonna see another tie pile up, right?
The old tie-up.
I mean, why wouldn't you?
Really, at this juncture, again, talking about these selective collisions that we were mentioning earlier,
Yeah,
the drifting,
totally.
as it were.
All right, so watching this final match, does this change your perception of X-Wing at all? What to bring to a tournament, what not to bring, what's good, what's not, that kind of stuff?
I'm really impressed with both lists, and I think more impressed with the maneuvering here on Jacob's part.
It's been the name of the game here, the maneuvers.
Yeah, I'm really happy to not see a Falcon here, but at the end of the day, I think the answer to a lot of problems is TIE Swarm.
Yes.
So as long as that list is around, it kind of leaves the options open as far as what's viable in the
Yeah,
format and what
yeah.
can be done. Really, the question becomes can your list handle TIE Swarm?
Yes, number one concern.
And if it can, how? And do that
And
anytime
tell
you
us.
see it. Yes. Beyond that, I mean, TIE Swarm has been viable forever. It's really, really solid, obviously.
It's been viable since the core, as we've seen. This is nothing fancy.
Yeah, so it's pretty impressive to see. I mean, Wave 3 is really going to shake things up, I think, between the upgrade cards and the ships themselves.
So we probably get a slightly better TIE Swarm, but also a lot more tools to potentially, battle it,
Yeah, that's the idea.
deal with it. I mean, imagine these TIEs take out a few and out of Lambda, right? What does that look like? Looks like some target locks.
Looks like some target locks. And a meat shield if you run the right stuff.
And a big meat shield, yeah.
I'm telling you, though, that Howl Runner working his magic this game. MVP, for sure.
Yeah, it's really interesting to me. Again, going back to the fact that these are core, especially TIE Swarm is core set exclusive list. So this is a list that is not going to get any worse. I mean,
The only possible thing that could happen is that stuff comes out that answers it, or that deals with it.
really answers it. Just
Yeah.
really answers it.
And I mean, there are things you can do, but I really think, and I think it's what's beautiful about the game, it comes down to knowing how your list should play against TIE Swarm to give you the best odds.
Yeah. And the kinds of things that we haven't seen. I mean, funnily enough, at least in this scenario, the weird things like the bombs that nobody's using could actually do some serious work here.
Yeah.
And also, we haven't seen ships that maybe can split their offense between two targets. We haven't seen like dual lasers, things like that. And those kinds of things could maybe put the crunch on a TIE Swarm list. And look at this. Just right into the mouth of the TIE fighters.
He will get a shield back, and I
Ooh.
think he'll get to take an action.
A shield back, but within every single firing arc on this board, aside from maybe number 4. And not really a choice. So it's not like, hey, James, bad move. It's more like, sorry, it's horrible.
Range.
Yep.
Initiative. Natural. 2.
Looks like 2 hits. See if Luke can evade it.
2 hits,
Luke's ability.
1 evade.
Luke's ability,
and
wow.
Luke's ability. So 2 evades.
I do have a shield back.
Wow.
Luke, I guess this is the only shot. We check the range.
Luke against tie number 3, the Academy Pilot.
The undamaged tie, as it were.
That's the one.
Range 2. We'll see if he can work his magic.
There's been no magic so far. And there is no hits there.
No.
At a certain point, James just got to throw the dice away.
Yeah, I mean, buy new dice or just walk away.
Yeah,
Ouch.
that's what you were looking for.
That is roughly what you were looking for.
I've not
as Luke.
seen James roll a really solid offensive roll this entire game.
So that stopped what? 2 of them?
Yeah, so just take one.
Taking one.
There goes the shield.
And evade and Luke's ability.
Can Luke finally be brought to his knees?
Look at this scene, though. Imagine if the movie had ended like this. What if this was the movie?
I'll run her.
We wouldn't have a title called Empire Strikes Back. It would be Remember the Empire Owning Us in the first movie.
The rebellion dies.
More of that, called the Empire Pile-On.
The Empire runs the galaxy.
That's right.
One.
Peace in the Galaxy is what the second
Yeah.
movie would be called.
Just cool shots of scenic areas of people being happy.
Right here. To Luke, range 1.
Shield.
Vader on an island somewhere.
I think the Empire gets a bad name. They really weren't that bad.
There's 3 hits. I don't see this evading.
He just can't evade it.
So that's it.
Fantastic game.
Jacob Pickelmeyer, the champion in X-Wing, the finals here. Fantastic to both of you guys. Jacob, James, if you guys are listening, fantastic play. If you see these guys at a tournament, if you see them locally, tell them congratulations, shake their hand. They went through a long day of X-Wing to
Yeah,
get
I think
here.
this is like 3, 4 in the morning.
Yes, a big moment. And I think ultimately James having that turn up front really set the pace of this game, set the tone. The tempo from that point on was in Jacob's favor. And the numbers just say it's going to be hard to wade through this many ships with 3 X-Wings.
Lesson, don't turn.
Don't turn, that's right. Never turn. So thank you guys for watching. Thank you to Fantasy Flight Games for letting us record these and put them on our channel here. Thank you to Jacob and James for allowing us to record them playing this game. They certainly have the option to refuse, but they chose to allow this to happen. So thanks to everyone involved in this. And thank you most of all to you guys for watching. And we really appreciate your support. Zach, you got anything else to add?
Not really. Let's get to Worlds and see what kind of list we see there. Hopefully it's not the Falcon.
Get to Worlds and see what happens. Thanks for watching, guys. We're going to catch you on another video at another time.
See you guys next time.